Hi, I'm Jim Clark. I'm an architect. I live in Delaware, next to the ocean, and my friend and I are working on quite a few things related to health and wellness and anti-aging, especially. Also, we have done quite a few things with the CP4U, which is a fractal device that runs cars and more efficiently in both performance and mileage. I've got several videos on the web that describe these devices. In the past, we've gotten as high as 150 miles per gallon on diesel cars, but they work just fine on gasoline cars also. Anyway, this video is really about my fourth book, but I'm going to talk to you first about the first four in outline. My first device, the first thing that I ever came up with was a protocol for health and joints, and that was the high-level MSM, which is in my first book. Along with that, I came up with whey protein isolates, which are very closely related to MSM, only not as intense, and also the low carb diet, which I have been using since. Recently, we came up with a brand new device, and that's called this is a device, and basically all you do is you just pour water through it. Oop, it's got some water in it, and you do it 3 times at least. It's linear. I talk about it later again. It's a fractal device also, and it both purifies and intensifies water in ways that nothing else can. Actually, nothing else. But it's a spin-off on Wayback Water, which Dr. Dan Nelson uses. This has a molecular structure with 0.3 micron or nanometer molecular structure, and Dan's water comes out at 0.4. It's very good, much better than anything else in the world, really. So this is quite a bit different water. It's got a lot of frequencies in it that they're all natural, and we're finding that it's only been out for, we've only had it for about a month, but we're finding that you really don't have to eat much if you have to eat anything. I doubt if you have to eat anything. It's incredible. I can miss meals and not even get hungry now. And some of the things, Dan's water is a reverse laser product. Reverse laser. That means reverse time laser, I should say. And if you think about it, if you say reverse time, it doesn't exist. So it's a contradiction in itself. But I have no idea what a reverse time laser does. But there are about 5 people in the world that do it, and Dan is one of them. I think he was probably the first. Okay, now the MSM that I recommend is any MSM that is made for basically for animals, horse MSM, if you will, and it comes from, and I buy mine on Amazon, whatever's available. It's cheap,
Animed is one of the ones that I often pick because that's the cheapest one, and it's also very it comes out very clean. So I use that. And how much of it? Everybody always asks that question because we're used to drugs, but MSM is a food. It's a sulfur-based food, so it doesn't really matter how much of it you use, so much as if you use enough of it. So I call it high level, and I call it high level meaning use at least 2 tablespoons, heaping tablespoons if you will, a day if you're over the age of 50. If you're a youngster in your 30s and 20s, you can get away with a lot less of it, and you could even take tablets. But the way I do it is I take the MSM, put it in my mouth, I drink a little bit of water with it after I switch it around for about 5 minutes, and that'll do it. What happens is that you absorb it in your mouth, quite a bit of it in your mouth, probably half of it anyway, and so it's very efficient when you do it that way. And efficiency is always one of the things you want to look for when you're doing these things. Obviously, if it's 0.3 micron water and instead of 4 micron water, it's 25% more efficient. That's pretty good. So there are more things to it though. These frequencies that come out of this water that this thing makes. Rich got all of this on the inner. We get all of our stuff on the inner. Basically, everybody does, but we're certainly aware of what we get. So. So anyway, that's the first part of it. Now let me talk about the methylation cycles. These are cycles that occur at the molecular level in your body, the cellular level, and this is where your energy comes from. Without them, you would not exist. So, how do they work? If you go on the web and search methylation cycles, you'll find that there are 3 of them, 3 different cycles, and they all depend on methyl groups to work, and that's why they call them methylation cycles. Now, interestingly enough, MSM has 2 parts methyl groups in it, so it's as far as I can see, a key element in all 3 cycles, and sulfur is one of the elements in one of the cycles. So this is a pretty important thing. MSM turns out to be a key thing for your health in ways that most people aren't aware of. Even the people that recommend it on the web have no clue that this gets down to this level. So you want to be doing as much MSM as you can, and especially the older you get, the less efficient your digestive system is, and the more you can use this to juice you up, make you more, make you stronger and more able to use energy efficiently. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is epigenetics and beyond epigenetics, which is the title of my third book. That book, it's been out maybe 6 months, something like that. It's pretty new. But here we discuss how we get into healing on a higher level, and this is a esoteric thing. Most people have no idea what I'm talking about when I talk about higher levels beyond subconscious. But there are basically all I know about is about 32 different levels, and I have never experienced anything beyond the ninth. So I'm just talking off the top of my head. But after you get beyond the subconscious level spiritually, and this is really my next book coming up, you get into a realm of where time and space don't exist, and the only thing there is basically love, and I'll talk about that again. And if you get into these realms where Rich does his healing, you can actually look at people from that area and do healing on. So you can heal them in ways that other people don't even understand. But you can see things from a level, from that level, and then go in and heal them and cure them from, instead of as Dr. Bruce Lipton does, from above rather than at that level. And we're going to talk about that in my next book. So we're going from here. The cover that you just saw is a painting that in a series that I did about 4 or 5 years ago of the salt marsh right down the road from my house here, and it captures a lot of what I'm trying to say in the book. Okay, first off, to start the book, my first chapter is what is God, and for purposes of this, God is just love. It's a vibration, and love to me is attention, but you can define it any way you wish. This is not really about God per se. And when you place your attention on anything, you are actively loving them. You are sending them a vibration. It's a frequency, and you'll hear a lot about frequencies here. So when you do that, you are being a spark of God and serving it in the greatest way possible. When providing this, more is generally more, conversely to most things. But anything that can be overdone, so you got to balance everything that you do. The quantum physicist that I mentioned earlier, Nissim Herein, calls God the singularity. So I repeat that in this book, even though I commonly don't use that term. There's no attempt here to reinforce any established religion nor to establish a spiritual path even though I have one. This book does not give, establish a sky god or a redeemer philosophy, and none is needed for any part of it to be understood or for you to use whatever's here given here. Still, implement the techniques herein, enhance your chosen path by using them, and they are to be practiced at least once a day, I would say. At least 15 minutes in some sort of a contemplation or spiritual exercise, whatever you want to call it. So next, you hear this thing about God being love, and most religions define it that, but then they don't tell you what love is. So I go on to say, love is placing your attention on something other than yourself, but not necessarily. You can love yourself, of course, and all of it is important. Just dreaming is one kind of love. Dreaming is virtually the same thing as your awakened state. Once you get really onto it and you dream in the most advanced ways, there really is no separation. So the key here is that we are all spiritual beings on a spiritual path. All loving acts move us toward that love or God, as we say. Hate is often considered the opposite of love. Well, actually, hate can be love, and I give you an example of that in this book. One I came up with was when you see two teenagers courting, and you see how this can be a contradiction. They virtually act as though they hate each other, but they are really giving each other love. And that's just one more of these kinds of contradictions that always occur spiritually. So feedback. You are always in a condition of constant feedback. That is one-way communication from God. While it may not be apparent, you actually do get back what you give. So love is always returned. And this love is quite significant. The wave may take years to occur, just as it may be instantaneous. The results can even take lifetimes, but it must return because that's the way love works. It's called balance, and some people call it karma, but it always happens. One method that I use is to measure feedback when it's known, when it can be known, and my method is I call dowsing. And what I do is I take this little rod here, and I have a pointer up on my screen in front of me, and when something's good, it points. When it's yes, it points that way, just like it's doing right now. And when it's negative, it goes that way. Now you might think I'm controlling that, and I was just then, but you'll find if you try it that you can get really good at that, and you can answer questions at virtually 100% level. Now this is really the same thing as muscle testing. You can go into Dr. Bruce Lipton's videos and watch him do it on people's arms when they hold their arms up in the air like this, and he pushes down on them and they resist. You can see Bruce finding out things about these people medically. Well, he can find out all kinds of things about them if he wanted to, or they would allow him, because you always have the ability to stop any of this if you wish. And that's what when I get into control. You are in control in certain ways, in every way, but you're never really in control of any situation, truly. And when you think you are, you're not. And that's one of my. If you're absolutely certain that you're in control, you're probably being a mentalist, and mentalists don't have control. They think they do. Modern physics and medical science, both, believe that when they have control mentally, they have control. It's just not the case. When you let go, and that's I know you've heard the term, everybody has, but when you let go and you surrender to God, if you will, the love, that's when you really have control. But if you try to control it, then it doesn't work. So it gets to be kind of funny, these contradictions. So right now, science in general commonly uses trial and error in all of their work. And trial and error is probably the least effective way to really learn, because they're not using any of their spiritual abilities when they do that. Now, creativity is a little different story, and you can't really do anything unless you're creative in certain ways. But if you rely on trial and error, and you rely on previously done work, you're not going to get it. It's just where it is. And that's why today our society is so far behind compared to what it was 10,000 years ago, even, or early Egyptian times. Trial and error was certainly used to some degree, but they didn't have books. I mean, they didn't have written books with paper. So they had to rely on what they were getting right then. And we just don't do that anymore. Some of the greatest scientists in the past, my favorite being Leonardo da Vinci, because he did so many things during the Renaissance. He was an architect, artist, an inventor, did the things I love. So have to put him on right at the top. And today, my man is Nissim Harriman, as I told you before. And what they were both doing was working with true creativity. And creativity never assumes that it has the final truth. It just works with what it has, and it goes on. And yeah, the more creative you get, the more you get. And it's the same thing with love. Now, I just told you about dowsing and muscle testing. I use them all the time for everything I do, because even if I have the work of somebody else right in front of me that's proven, supposedly, it's never proven. I have to test it. And one of the things that I do, one of the things that got me here was when we were working on our car device. I had to I had to test every crystal that we had programmed and make sure that they all lined up plus and minus. Because if they were, one was backwards, the thing would only be 2/3 as good, and or 3/4 as good. So I got to be really good at that, and Dr. Price would go back and check my work, randomly to make sure that we got it right, because you never know, you can make a mistake, but virtually every time I got it right, and virtually every one of those CP4Us, as we call them, worked. If one was backwards, it wouldn't work as well. Well, I could have gotten a few backwards, I don't know, but apparently most of them were right the first time. And one of the guys that got us here was Dan Nelson. He is a quantum scientist. He's very far along in the field. I think he's maybe the best in the world in his field. But he uses fractals in healing. You can see him on the web. Just search Dan Nelson's water, or way back water, and you'll find him. He does use muscle testing on people in front of you. He also does muscle testing like this, where he holds his hands up like this. Now you watch him closely, because he's real good at it, and he can use that to determine if you have problems, medical problems, heart condition. He does that with one guy. You'll see him do it. But he relies on muscle testing just about as much as anybody I've ever seen, especially someone that's not into some of the advanced spiritual techniques that Rich and I are. I just wanted to let you know that nothing in the future is ever completely determined until it happens. I talk about this as established truths in the book, but you never get a complete future determined until it actually happens. That you as a spiritual being are one person that has influence on the future. All people together have an influence on the future. We all establish how the future is going to be determined by our creative abilities. So the more you go along physically or spiritually, the more you determine the outcome of future events. You become more of a determiner, if you will, a what's the word for it? You become God's will, if you will. Now God, again, I'm not calling God any particular thing, but you become a God person as you move up the spiritual ladder, if you will. Spiritual ladder being, some people are just further along than others, and even though society today likes to put us all in the same box, we are not in that box. So one of the things I want bring up here, and I did in the book, is that bad things happen to everybody, and they have to, because if they didn't happen, if bad things didn't happen to you, you wouldn't learn. And you're here to learn, and that's just the way it is. So obviously bad things happen to me, and I don't get upset about it because I know that they're there for a reason, and everything happens for a reason. So I'm learning. We're all learning. So even people who have really negative outlooks and maybe want to kill a bunch of people or whatever, all of them influence this world, whether we like it or not. It's a soup. And one of the things I bring up is just how quickly this stuff can happen. It can happen in virtually minutes, and I've seen it occur. I can tell you that Rich and I are both, we've been around for quite a while. Spiritually, we've been members of our groups 40 years. Mine is Ekankar, his is Sri Michael Owen's group. He was in Ekankar for a while, for a long time. And the two of us together, when we get together and try to do something, not try to do something because you can't try. If you try, it doesn't work. If we let something happen, we ask to let it happen, and it happens. It can happen in a heartbeat. And what came to me just recently, I learned that, and I knew this, but I never really had it happen to me, is you can actually reverse events that have happened. You can turn something around that has occurred. Now, I heard about this, 30, 40 years ago. I heard a story about a guy that was driving his car, and he got into an accident, and he went into a spiritual exercise, and minutes later the car was driving down the road with him in it, and nothing had happened. Well, this is pretty strange. Obviously, not very many people experience this, but it does occur. And one of the things it can't do is you can't have a lot of people see this happen with you, because it would change their spiritual outlook and ways that would affect their futures, and it's just not allowed. So it's very rare, but I've seen it happen myself, and not very long ago it happened. So we don't violate that illusion. If we did, it would change the outlooks of people that are definitely on a spiritual path, that and just learning their way along, and they might even go crazy. Who knows? I mean, crazy is not the right word, but this would affect them greatly, and we can't allow that to happen spiritually. For that reason, the further you get along on the path, the least you can tell. The more you tell, you got to really be careful how you tell it and what you say, because you can just mess up people's lives very badly, and you're responsible just like everybody else is. So what's prayer? And I mentioned that this is one of my titles. When you pray, especially if you do it creatively and you visualize along with it, you can actually make things happen. But the problem with prayer is that the person that's praying thinks that they are causing, that they know more than God does, apparently, or you couldn't do it. You wouldn't do it. So prayer, you ask for something, and it comes along, and you might just disrupt a lot of things and cause problems for yourself. So you really have to be careful about what you ask for, because you're liable to get it, and a lot of times you do get it, and that causes problems for you. So the best thing to do is to just visualize some nice stuff and allow it to happen instead of trying to make it happen, because once you try to make something happen, the problems start. So that's visualization, and that's another title I have here. From a visualization standpoint, the most powerful tool that you possess is creative visualization. I say that in one of my sentences here I'm reading. So creative visualization, I mean, I do it every day. It's part of my job, you know, as an architect. But you visualize what you're trying to do first. We all do it. You can't, if you couldn't visualize it first, nothing would ever happen. You have to visualize it first. And I used to teach school architectural design, and the hardest part was to get people to sit down and actually visualize rather than trying to do a design. Because if you try to do a design, it will never happen, and you'll never be an architect or an artist or anything else. I mean, musician, you have to sit down and you all play together, and it comes together. You ask any musician that does it, and he'll tell you how it works, but he doesn't know. It's very strange. So I mentioned this before, but problems are gifts from God. We don't ever see them that way, or most of us never see them that way. When you start to see them that way, you're grateful, because you just learned something that you couldn't get it any other way. Now, interestingly enough, and most people probably question what I'm saying here, but one of the reasons that this earth is such a great place to be is that we have a lot of problems here. When you go to the higher planes, the problems pretty much go away, and it's all up to you to be creative and make things happen. But that's a lot harder to do. It's a lot harder to do. You're not forced into anything. You have to be the person that's doing the creating, and it's like you are God, but you never are. You never become God. You're always working on that path, and there's always one more step ahead of you. So, the title of this book, What is Surrender? Now, everybody talks about surrender in Christianity, whatever religion. It's virtually letting go and letting God in, letting love in your heart. God's the creative force. We call it creative. It's really a lot more than that. But we say that God created heaven and earth and all that. But what really happened? I'm not. It's pretty deep. But it's a creative force, just like you're a creative force. So you're in a certain way, you are a small God, if you will, but being that. And the more you love, the more creative you get. That's just how it happens. So if you love your work, you become more of a creative force. You become more of a higher vibration. You work on higher levels. So that. And surrender is about letting your mind go, not trying to control anything. Now you notice, and the world's full of them, of mentalists, and these are the people that never rely on their creativity or their ability to create, their intuitive abilities. Most of the scientists in the world today, or quite a few of them, consider themselves agnostic, and that's because they are taught to be mentals. That's what school teaches it for, at least lots of kinds of things that you take, like science and chemistry, whatever, physics. These things teach you to use your mind more and your creative ability less. So there's a lot of problems with our educational system today. I mean, how many times do you go into a class and have somebody say, all right, this is how it's done now, what's a better way? The next thing is that surrender isn't a weakness. There's nothing weak about surrendering and loving and being your true self. A lot of people are just the opposite. They try to control, and really, if you think about it, that is a weakness. And that's an expression of weakness. Okay, next we're going to talk about wellness. Wellness is a process. It's an ongoing process. And the problem with not being well is that you're often pulled into pain. And you cannot be fully open-hearted and loving and directed, if you will, when you're in pain. It's just too hard to do. I know I can't do it, but maybe somebody out there can, but it's just really, really hard to do. I just read the other day that when cats are hit by cars, they purr. That was sweet. But you got to stay well, and one of the reasons that Rich and I are working so hard to help people stay well is so they can focus on the love and learn spiritually in an easier way. And one of the things I speak about is that everything is in spirituality has a contradiction to it to some degree. That's just the way it works. If it weren't that way, we would only have one religion. We don't. We have, as you know, lots of religions and lots of groups that flake off from the religions, and it's always a continual operation. So, you know, I'm a Methodist, you're a Baptist, whatever. If we all did it the same way, there wouldn't be but one religion, and that would be, probably wouldn't have a title. It would just be what it is. Now, the next thing I'm talking about here is sexual surrender. Now, you know that if you study the ancient Hindu beliefs, they outline the chakras, which are they start low and they end up high, right up here at the pineal gland, or the top of your head at the crown chakra, and they're all important in a certain way. Sexuality especially the higher sexuality, which includes love, an open heart. These things teach you. But all sexuality teaches. Even if you're just interested in physical whatever, that's going to teach you, because you'll find out that it ain't going to work. And when something doesn't work, you're going to learn. And that's the important thing about it. Now, one of the things about that is that female, of course we have males and females, but females have an ability to surrender that makes it a lot easier than it is for males. But we all have to learn it. If we don't learn how to surrender, we ain't going to get it. And so that's one of the key elements of this book. Another part of this is death. Death is another form of surrender. Most people don't want to die. Well, when you understand what death really is, and it's a whole lot nicer than you think, for the most part. I mean, there's some bad things about it. Death is a transition, and that transition is very loving in a lot of ways, but you do have to get past that angel of death, if you will, that Christianity calls Satan. It isn't quite like you think. Satan is an entity, yes, but his job, if you want to call him Lord of Karma, some other religions call him Lord of Karma. Hinduism has their name for it. You have to get past that guy, and he knows everything that you ever did. He has no interest in giving you anything there. It's a honest assessment of what you've done. So he puts it all together and he shows it to you, and he says, okay, here's where you go, and you have no choice. You're going to go there. And you go there to learn, but you're not going to learn as fast as you do here, and eventually you'll have to come back. At least until you get to the higher planes, which is above the 5th level, which is just above the subconscious level that Dr. Bruce Lipman talks about in epigenetics. I recommend that everybody that is hearing this go to Lipman's site and learn what he's got to teach, because that's really important. What he's found, and Dr. Lipman is one of the early people that studied genetics way back, and he was on the first team, I believe. But anyway, he's found that when you get to the subconscious level, which you have no control over, it would be conscious level. But when you get to that subconscious level, you can change your genetics in amazing ways. Well, one of the things that Dr. Rich Price does, my friend, is he works from the higher 5th plane, or higher. He actually works from the 8th plane. But when you get to the higher planes and you work down, you can see it all. You get to see it all if you ask. So he can work with you from that higher plane and change your genetics. He can change just about anything about you if it's allowed. Now, he doesn't have control of what's allowed. He just asks, and if it's allowed, he can change it. So if you have a really terrible thing that happened to you in some lifetime, especially recent lifetime, such as you were burned at the stake or whatever, he can come back and he can take that, he can let that go for you, help you let it go anyway, by redirecting it. Might sound crazy, but this is a fact. So there are levels of surrender. We're mostly interested in the personal level here, but families have to learn to surrender. Fights between families. Maybe your next door neighbor doesn't get along well. Whatever, your family might fight with somebody in a neighborhood, might have a problem with another neighborhood. Whatever, you got to learn how to get it together, and they have to surrender. And happens with corporations. Corporations especially, because corporations tend to be directive. They tend to want to control the people that work there. That's part of their job in a way, but if they get too controlling, they got to learn how to surrender and let the employees be creative. That's a hard thing to do for a corporation, but they learn, and it's all about the same thing. And so cities and governments have to do the same thing. Our government right now, the United States government, is becoming more and more controlling. And as it does that, it's losing more and more of the love that was once a part of this country. Of course, there were times when it wasn't so loving, when it was first coming about. But those guys cared. They cared about, what we were doing, and they did a lot of good work in those days. They were very, very spiritual people for the most part. So this actually happens not just on Earth, but Earth has a karma, and so do all the other planets and galaxies and universes, if you will. We all have to work this stuff out, and each one of the Earth has that, as I said, an overall karma, and that karma will affect it. And basically, you as a person, the more spiritual you become, the more you help the Earth, you help the universe, and you help the galaxies. So there's no real scale to all this. It's not physical. I just talked to you about Beyond the Subconscious. That's one of my titles here. And Bruce Lipton. Please, if you get a chance, take the time to go there and listen to Bruce. Listen to Nissan Harriman. I try to call him Nissan the car. But listen to these people. They understand some things that you just can't get for the most part on your own, and they can lead you to some places that you'll find are quite interesting. And by the way, Nissan uses the word the singularity often, and I define that really as God, but he doesn't want to use the word God. So he calls it the singularity, and that's fine. It's a oneness. Now, one of the things that Nissan does is he goes into the explaining the vortex, which is the spin, and he explains how all that works. He talks, and in the middle of that spin is a singularity in every case. Has to be. There's always a place where things don't move, and that's just like in a tornado or a hurricane. In the center, when it goes over the eye of the hurricane, if you will. All spins have that spot, and that's what we call a singularity. That's the God force, if you will. It's where everything is happening, but nothing is. It's the center of all of it. It's a place of boundless love. So that's a contradiction, just like everything else is, I'm telling you. Dreaming. Dreaming is probably the most important thing you do, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. I always recommend that you keep a dream journal. Journals are so important spiritually. I can't tell you how important they are. My 5-year younger brother just died, and I had to see him across. I say had to. I was honored to. And one of the things that he did all of his life was keep a journal of his life. He journaled everything. A really wonderful thing, and that was a huge help for him spiritually. It moved him up quite a bit. So keep a dream journal. A dream journal would be just of your dreams, but it doesn't hurt to put in stuff in there that happens in your life, because you might forget it. You don't want to forget anything spiritual if you can help it. And if something that happens in your life, it's really a big deal. You will find that if you keep going back to it, you can get more out of it. So it doesn't die. Spiritual things are boundless. One of the things that happens, the more you journal, the more things occur. In other words, the more lucid your dreams become. The more you pay attention to them, the more lucid they become. And journaling things, the more attention, the more lucid your life becomes as you journal your life. So that keeping a diary is a good idea, but not just a diary. Something that's more than just a diary. You look into it. He used to sketch everything that happened in his life. That was so cool. Let's see here. Actually, there's no separation between dreams and life in your waking life, except for mentally. They're the same thing. You're learning on the inner, you're learning on the outer. And dreams are just another way to learn. Interesting thing about when you dream is that when something happens to you in the dream state, you don't get hurt, and that's kind of nice. At least you don't get hurt physically. You can be hurt mentally. You can be badly hurt mentally, but if you have the protection of love, of the inner master, if you will not be hurt. That's one of the things that you have to learn to depend on. So we become really accomplished dreamers, and we dream we can dream on the fifth and higher planes. Now, when you get to that level, I got to tell you, it's pretty nice. I can't describe, and I wouldn't if I could, because it would mess some people up. What happens when you get to the fifth plane and above? Each of the planes, as you move up the spiritual ladder, has a sound and a light a color of light that accompanies it, and each one of them has a very sharp, if you will, separation. And when you cross from, say, the psychic level to the causal level, which is be second to third level, there is a sided difference, and the sound can be quite disturbing, really, as you move up. Well, this can happen when it happens in a dream state. It's a lot easier, but it can happen when you're awake too. And I actually went to the fifth plane once when I was before I became an echist, and that was outrageous. I today look back on that and use it in my spiritual exercises often, because it was a lesson that changed my whole life right then. Never went back to doubting about death or anything else after that. It was a done deal. But I set that up in the dream state, and you can do the same thing. I set that up by what happened was I was laid off from work and I didn't have much to do, so I just I took 30 days off and did a spiritual exercise every day, and dreamed, let the dreams go, kept a very detailed journal, and I used a clock to wake me up every hour until I got it right, and I could wake up and write in the journal. And after that at the end of that 30 days, that's when I went to the fifth level, and it blew me away. Anybody can do this. You just have to get yourself set up for it. Again, it's not a religion. There isn't any religion. And most people forget their dreams. You ask them. I would say a good third of them forget all dreams. Or a good maybe 20% of them don't even think they dream. That's kind of crazy. You can't stop dreaming. You can't stop dreaming even if you die. You're still going to dream. All right, so next thing is placing attention. The last thing you want to do is put attention on yourself. That, except for, you do need to love yourself, and you need to give as with my brother who used to keep a dream journal or a life journal. That is loving yourself, and boy, does that help. I really wasn't aware of it as much as I am now. Wow, that really helped him a lot. Made his transition to the higher worlds much easier. So the closer you get to God, the singularity, that center, the further you are spiritually. It's a loving act. So you do it long enough. Now, once you get to the fifth plane, you've gotten to the above time and space. There is no time and no space. Makes no sense to somebody that's mentally set up. But there isn't any. You are but beyond time, so things can happen there that happened, but that's all. That's all. It's just not. I can't explain it. It doesn't make any sense. Because once you get beyond time and space, what we talk about here just doesn't make any sense. And it's all love there. That's it. That's the only thing there is. And there's so little difference between, say, the 7th and 8th plane compared to the 2nd and 3rd. But each one of them is a new revelation, a new ability to love and open up. It gives you opportunity to do things that nobody else can do. So you set yourself up for that. So just petting your dog, cat, letting nature into your consciousness, as MSM Herein talks about, these are all loving acts, and they certainly help you spiritually. They help stop time, which is that's the key to it all, stopping time, because there's no time and space in the higher worlds. Does it make sense to you? So you're a spiritual traveler by birthright. Now you go on the web and you can read about spiritual traveling. What's it called? Remote viewing. Remote viewing. Very interesting thing. Learned about that long before I ever learned about spirituality, actually. And Ingo Swann was one of the early remote viewers. They did it with the United States government to fight Star Wars against Russia. Crazy stuff. And we can see things from right here that have occurred or will occur in other places if we're keyed in. If you want to get started, you do the dowsing thing, because that's a plus and minus deal. You know you got it right when you say, yes, my name is Jim Clark, or no, my name is not Susie, and that thing points. You're set up. You know you got it. But you can ask virtually any question, yes or no, or you can ask any question that has a number associated with it. Like, how many times should I do this? You can say 1, 2, 3, 4, and when you get to the end of it, and I've seen Rich do this many times. I don't do that. I'm not that good at it. But Rich does the muscle testing. Is it 2 times I should be doing this? Is it 3 times? When you get to the number, you feel yourself let go. You don't have the muscle ability anymore when you get to a lie. So you can use that, you develop it, you get good at it, and you know everything on a plus and minus basis from now on. Everything. It's 100% virtually. So what are karma and sin? That's another chapter. You're never really totally right, and you're never totally wrong, unlike what you'll learn in religions. But you're sort of right and sort of right about everything. If you're paying attention and you're loving, you're much more right. You can, as I said before, you can actually repair past experiences that no longer suit you. By creativity, you can reinvent a past experience and make it into something new. It's not easy, but it can be done. I've seen it done. I know it can be done. So something really bad, you think really bad happened to you, sit down, go into contemplation, or whatever you want to call it, picture yourself in the same situation but with a different outcome, and guess what? It gets better. Again, I mentioned this before. Bad things always happen. Here's one experience that I wrote about in my book. Say you're flying in a jet plane and it crashes, and you live. Well, what do most people think about that? They go, "Oh, am I lucky?" You're really not. Yeah, you're not lucky. The person that died didn't have anything else that they had to do, and you do. You got to come back here and do stuff. So the person that was lucky is the guy that died. You cannot kill yourself and get away with it. You have to get through this experience we call life. Or if you do take your life, you got to come back and do it again, but it's probably going to be worse. So you better just go ahead and get through it and do the best you can, be as creative and loving as you can, and things will work out. But again, that guy on that plane that died, and the guy, if you're the one that made it through it, you're not the lucky person. You think you are. I'm telling you, it's not that bad. Dying is just not that bad. My brother is in a really good place. He loves it. And one of the things that you always have, if you're staying here, is you got things to do. You can't do them as well on the higher planes as you can do them here. It's just not that. It's just a lot less. I would say hurtful, if you will, on the higher planes. It's a lot nicer in certain ways, but you don't go there and learn much compared to what you learn here. And that's the reason you keep coming back, because you know you got things to get done. So you keep coming back and get it right. So what's the next thing is your attitude, and with that, are you grateful? One thing that you're never gonna find is a person that is grateful and not loving. Yeah, they just go together. They're not the same thing. Grateful means that you know that you got the right thing, and you know it, and you feel good. So if your attitude is right, you're not working on fear, you're not working on negativity. You're gonna make things happen in a better way for you, and you're going to see them as a better thing. So it changes. The more things happen in a good way, the more they happen in a good way, just like they happen just as with the love thing. You create something and you keep creating it better. You get better at it. One of the things that I talk about in this paragraph is that governments and leaders are driven to have you depend on them for their power and protect you, and fear feeds on that. So that this whole attitude that you're trying to create is anti-government in a sense. Obviously, I'm accepting our government as it is. I have to. One of the things you got to realize is that the government never gives you anything for free. Nobody does. You always have to some way pay for everything you get. It's just part of karma, if you will. You call it karma. It's balance. That's what it is. And so the more self-sufficient you become, the more loving you become, the more grateful you become for the things that you're given, and eventually you learn to transcend pain and fear that this world wants you to have. There's always a helpful there's always a healthy balance. And there's a time that you know when to surrender, and also a time that you know when not to surrender, if you're paying attention. It's always a decision that you have to make, and decisions are always best gotten from the inner. So gratitude is one of the things that you always fear. No one can teach you gratitude. You know it. You got it, and the more you get it, the more the further you are along spiritual. All right, now next we're going to talk about epigenetics again with morphic resonance. Morphic resonance was I just told you about Dr. Bruce Lipton's thing. It's very interesting about epigenetics and how you can change your genetic structure, and also get rid of diseases that you had. Now, let me just tell you how that works, but he'll tell you on his videos in a better way probably. But you're working on a subconscious level. Subconscious, you're not conscious. In other words, you dream consciously, you dream subconsciously. Subconscious you don't remember anything that you dream, and most people live there. The subconscious level means that you know something, but you can't really describe it. You know it though. It's embedded. Okay, so let's say you know that you're going to get well. If you know you're going to get well, you absolutely must. But you cannot make yourself know. That's something that you have to earn. So, how do you get to that point? One way is to see it happen enough times. All right, so you go to some lecture and you see some doctor come up with a new paradigm in medicine, and he shows you how to get rid of something that has been affecting you all your life, and you know it works because you saw 50 people there that got over it. You go home, you do what he said, and you're almost guaranteed to get well. It's not a guarantee. There are no guarantees, but chances are you're going to get well, because that's how epigenetics works. Morphic resonance is a very different thing. Not very different. It's certainly related, but it's different. Morphic resonance, one of the best examples, and this guy that I talk about in the book, Rupert Sheldrake, discusses it. I think he might have invented the term, but he discusses it, morphic resonance, and he does it on a talk in YouTube, so you ought to listen to him. But I've been discussing this for years with other people, and now he's put a name on it. It's basically about vibratory paths, about frequencies, and it's different than epigenetics in that it's a thing that occurs naturally. And is it subconscious? I don't know necessarily, but one example of it that I've been discussing with people for years is that how when a flock of birds a large flock of birds is flying overhead, and one of them decides to turn, all the rest of them turn immediately. And this is how it works. So the brain is not just a receiver or a thinker. It's both. We get morphic resonance may have a lot to do with what we call psychic ability, but I don't know if it's the same thing. Maybe. He talks about a lot of proofs in his talk beyond flocks of birds, but that's one of the best ones I know of. He takes it further, and he's made this his primary study. He's one of the experts on it in his field, or if it's maybe the only expert in his field. Fractal geometry. All right, this is something that Rich and I have been working on probably 4 years, 5 years, something like that. And we first got onto it on our own, I think. I can't say for sure, but Rich went to a lecture, one of Dr. Dan Nelson, who is a quantum physicist I spoke of earlier, in Niagara Falls, and Rich got onto his stuff, learned a lot about it, and brought it back, and the two of us put our heads together, and we pushed it about, I don't know, 5 times further than Dan had, but Dan's stuff is pretty great, I gotta say. And Dan's water is another thing that came out of this, is Wayback Water, which Rich would not. Rich, by the way, heals people with fractals. He makes a fractal stack that comes from fractals that I put together with him, and we created. And he stacks these fractals up in a certain way, so it changes the geometry of the stuff that's influencing the person. He can change their future and their past, as I mentioned. Not so easily. Can't change the past so easily, but he can. Future so easily. But he can change their health radically and quickly. So recently we just came up with new water. He's calling it what's he call it? Life water. No matter what it's called, it's pretty great. And that water is, well, Dan Nelson's Wayback Water is 0.4 nanometers in particle size. My water is 0.4, or is 4 microns. That's really, really good water. And it has what they call a life unit, which is one way to measure the overall quality of the water, of 100, which is outrageous compared to most people's water. But it comes from a large aquifer, a river that runs underneath my house, and it hits that aquifer right on at 100 feet, so it's great. But we can now, using fractals and the crystals that he was given on the inner crystals and not crystals, gems. He has a bunch of polished or tumbled gems that he puts into it, that he was directed by actually the angel Gabriel, if you will. Gabriel was an ascended master. That means he didn't die. He just goes back and forth. But anyway, Gabriel directed him to make this water, and it's rather amazing stuff. Rich didn't have a lot to say about it. He just did what he was told, but he put it together in a very nice way. The container that he made, the pass-through device, makes water as much as you want of it. You pass it through 3 times, and you get this 0.3, what would be every pass. By the way, everything that is fractal in nature is linear in its response. So, for instance, on the car, I'll come back to this. On the car that uses our fractal device, the mileage increase is linear. So, if you get a 10% mileage increase, this is a for instance. So, if you get a 10% mileage increase at 10 miles an hour, you'll get and it's every 10 miles an hour, then you get a 20, a 30, a 40, 50, like that. Our car, for instance, gets 60 miles to a gallon at 60 miles or at 70 miles an hour, and at 80 miles an hour, it's up 5. All right, so at 90 miles an hour, it might be up 7, and 7 more. We don't know because we're not allowed to drive that fast, but I have seen 100 with this one car in one of our tests. 100 miles to a gallon for over 100 miles. It was actually 100 miles exactly, which made it real easy to figure. All right, back to linear response. This device gives you 200 life units at 1 pass. It gives you 400 at 2 passes, 600 3 passes, like that. So if you do 50 passes, you get 10,000. Pretty nice. And you could make up water that was 50 passes, and you could put a little bit of it in your water, and it would immediately become like way back water, where you only just add a little bit, and it works. But when you got a device like this, why bother? When I put it into my coffee, when I put it in my container, I just pass it through 3 times and go. It's real fast. It's just like pouring it out of a glass into another glass. It's real simple. What does that do? Everything you can think of. From a spiritual point of view, I'm thinking that this will do away with even having to eat food, but time will tell. It's got all the frequencies as you can think of, and we've only been testing it for like a month, but I can see where this could change everything in terms of people's lives, their health. Their hair could start growing back and like it was when they were 18. A lot of things have changed for me, even though I was probably as healthy a person at 73 as anybody you're ever going to find. A lot of things have really improved for me in the last couple of days after starting on this. Just have to see where it's going to go. And one of the things that Dr. Sheldrake, that I started talking about, it is that biology improves itself, and it self repairs. And this is you got to take this as a fact for your life. Your body wants to repair itself. It wants to be healthy, and modern medicine thinks that all bodies are the same, and if they apply certain things to them, they will all respond in a certain way. Not true. Nothing is like that in nature. We are not all the same. We are not all the same people in any way, especially spiritually, but even physically. We are all individuals, and we all need different things to be healthy. If we start thinking like that, you're going to be just like the rest of them, and you're going to die at 70, 80, whatever, of a heart attack, and that's it, or a cancer, whatever. Can't do it. It's just stupid. When will we learn? So quantum healings. All right, now that's our next topic. Nissan just gave us a very, very precise particle theory that it predicts that we can be healed at the atomic and microparticle levels. And obviously his predictions are correct. Not only as I've mentioned before, are these healings fast, but they're forever. When you have a quantum healing, you don't go back to being sick again. You're over it. Now that doesn't always happen when you were talking about something like a parasite. For instance, Rich started out doing Lyme's disease, and that was his real specialty. He did quite a few people, healed a lot of people with Lyme's. But Lyme's disease comes back as a morph and attacks in a different way and causes new problems that modern medicine interprets as things like MS, all kinds of really nasty things. And they obviously, if it's MS, they can't do anything about it. They give you drugs, but to lessen the effect to some degree. But they can't really heal a lot of diseases that they treat. They can make money on it. That's the most important thing. So anyway, that's the first part of it. Now let me talk about the methylation cycles. These are cycles that occur at the molecular level in your body, the cellular level, and this is where your energy comes from. Without them, you would not exist. So, how do they work? If you go on the web and search methylation cycles, you'll find that there are three of them, three different cycles, and they all depend on methyl groups to work, and that's why they call them methylation cycles. Now, interestingly enough, MSM has 2 parts methyl groups in it, so it's as far as I can see, a key element in all 3 cycles, and sulfur is one of the elements in one of the cycles. So this is a pretty important thing. MSM turns out to be a key thing for your health in ways that most people aren't aware of. Even the people that recommend it on the web have no clue that this gets down to this level. So you want to be doing as much MSM as you can, and especially the older you get, the less efficient your digestive system is, and the more you can use this to juice you up make you more make you stronger and more more able to use energy efficiently. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is epigenetics and beyond epigenetics, which is the title of my third book. That book, it's been out maybe 6 months, something like that. It's pretty new. But here we discuss how we get into healing on a higher level, and this is a esoteric thing. Most people have no idea what I'm talking about when I talk about higher levels beyond subconscious. But there are basically all I know about is about 32 different levels, and I have never experienced anything beyond the 9th. So I'm just talking off the top of my head. But after you get beyond the subconscious level spiritually, and this is really my next book coming up, you get into a realm of where time and space don't exist, and the only thing there is basically love, and I'll talk about that again. And if you get into these realms where Rich does his healing, you can actually look at people from that area and do healing on them. So you can heal them in ways that other people don't even understand. But you can see things from a level, from that level, and then go in and heal them and cure them from, instead of as Dr. Bruce Lipton does, from above rather than at that level. And we're going to talk about that in my next book. So we're going from here.